Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. In the spirit of truth and reconciliation, we acknowledge the town of Edson is located on Treaty 6 territory, the traditional and ancestral lands of the Nikawak, Saulteaux, Siksika, Piikani, Kainai, Dene, Nakota Sioux, and the Apitsumissawak Métis Nations. We honor the knowledge of this land, the elders and youth which gather here, and our ancestors who have gathered here for centuries. Just a reminder to everyone, we are back to electronic voting for the first time in a while, so hopefully everything will work out as we hope. Can I get a motion, please, that the agenda for the March 12th, 2024 Committee of the Whole meeting be adopted as presented? Go ahead, Councillor Moore.
I so move.
Thank you, Councillor Moore. Any questions, comments, or concerns? Seeing none, please vote now. And that motion is carried unanimously. Can I get a motion, please? The minutes of the February 13th, 2024 Committee of the Whole meeting be adopted as presented. Go ahead, Councillor Chachka.
I so move.
Thank you. Any questions, comments, or concerns? Seeing none, please vote now. And that motion is carried unanimously. We have a delegation tonight. I'd like to welcome up Mr. Troy Sorensen with the Edson Rotary Club, who will be presenting this evening on Wilmore Park. Just a reminder, and I know Mr. Sorensen is familiar with the procedures here at Council, I hope, that you will have 15 minutes to speak through the chair. Though the chair may extend time, Council may ask clarifying questions. Debate concerning matters raised during public presentation shall take place solely at the discretion of Council, and responses should be directed through the chair. Welcome, Mr. Sorensen. We'll just get you to hit your microphone, or he already did it for you, so you're good to go.
Good evening, Council and Administration. I am Troy Sorensen, past president of the Rotary Club of Edson, and I'd like to thank you for the opportunity to present tonight. We've been asking for this opportunity since the fires, so it's great that we could finally make this happen. I know many of you are well aware of Rotary, but I just want to take a couple of minutes to remind you of what Rotary is and what it does. We've been chartered in Edson since 1997, and we are the largest co-ed service group in Edson. One of our earliest projects was funding the water fountain in Centennial Park. We also funded the skate park, Rotary Skate Park. And we did a significant contribution to the Kinsman Spray Park. We initiated and ran Rotary Sundays in the Park for many years. And we also did a significant contribution towards the Centennial Park Pavilion. And just recently, we funded the Rotary Pump Track at Wilmore Park. One of our, now more of our ongoing programs, we call as New Generations. Every year, we try to send youth to vocational programs such as Adventures in Firefighting, Adventures in Forestry, as well as we send youth on leadership development camps as well. Every few years we try to do a youth exchange, an international youth exchange. And every year we hand out several scholarships for post-secondary education, and it's based on volunteerism and service to the community. And one of our biggest pillars of service is community support. This year we did a huge food drive for school breakfast and snack programs. And every year we do an international project as well. We send ambulances and fire trucks down to, we drive them down to Mexico to needy communities, as well as we've done projects in Belize, Sudan, and the Philippines. Now on to kind of our fundraising. One of our biggest fundraisers to date was producing the Nitty Gritty Dirt Band in Edson. In one night, we sold over 1,400 tickets and raised $50,000 that we spread around the community to nonprofit organizations. And if we ever get a multiplex in town, we'd like to do a similar event like this in the future. One of our ongoing fundraisers in the past was the Slow Pitch Campground. We used to make about $10,000 to $20,000 a weekend running the campground for the Kinsman Slow Pitch Tournament. Now on to Wilmore. Thank you for indulging us in that brief update. So we took over operations of the park in the spring of 2022 with a 3-year contract with the town. Immediately we started a website and an app, phone app so that people could book online and see which campsites they were choosing. We also created a helpline to help people with those bookings. We created a new logo and a Facebook page to help with communications. We repaired all the picnic tables and a lot of new signage in the park to help with flow as campers arrive. In the first year, we increased parks utilization by 10%. And at the end of the summer, we did a survey of over 440 people, and we had a 26% response rate. And I know you guys would appreciate that kind of response rate. The majority of our bookings are 1 to 2 days. And the majority are family groups. And about a third of those are from the Edmonton area. I grouped all of St. Albert, Sherwood Park, Spruce Grove, all of those communities together. And about 20% are from Edson and about 9% from Yellowhead County. And about a quarter of the campers are just from other areas like BC and Saskatchewan, just going through the region. We did, like I said, we did a survey at the end of the year and we received a 9 out of 10 overall experience, which we were very happy to receive. We also received a 9 out of 10 for cleanliness and a 9 out of 10 for camper safety, what they felt as safety. And we received an 8 out of 10 for amenities, and when we asked what amenities they would like to see, they said powered sites, running water, washrooms, and cell service. And when we asked them why they chose Wilmore, they said they chose it for the bike park and the trails, river access, and low cost and access to nature and wilderness. 80% of our campers shopped in Edson. Vast majority were buying groceries and fuel, but quite a bit is also buying camping supplies and having a meal in a restaurant. On average, or the vast majority spent $100 to $250 in our community. And then all hell broke loose in last year. So I do have to make I have to apologize for the error on the slide. It says May 10th park was evacuated, but actually what I was trying to say there was May 10th the park was officially closed. So the town was evacuated May 5th. The town came back on May 8th, but then the town decided to officially close the park due to the threat of wildfire. So on May 10th, the park was closed, and it stayed closed until May 24th. And you can imagine those openings and closures during May just completely killed our momentum and killed the May long weekend, which was fully booked. And then again, June 9th, the town and the park were evacuated again. The majority of the hotspots were extinguished in middle of June, and then June 23rd, the park was officially reopened, however, with only 12 campsites available. I'm just showing these pictures. I know council has received many fire updates, so I don't need to go into depth there. The impacts of the fires, the old area, what used to be called Overflow, or what we were now calling Ridgeview, was completely lost. So we lost 29 campsites, which is 71% of our revenue potential. We canceled and refunded $11,000 worth of during the evacuations and enclosures, but that's I underestimated the impact because many bookings just never happened because people knew it was on fire or that it was being just damaged. Compared to the previous year, we had $23,000 less revenue for campsite bookings. The impacts of the fire specifically, the park itself or the town lost 2 outhouses. The firewood storage shed was burnt. The wood splitter was destroyed, and as well as the pull-behind mower. For club assets, we lost an ATV, signage, and we also lost several $1,000s worth of firewood. I forgot to include in this slide. The outlook for 2024, the club has lost over $10,000 since taking over operations of the park. We knew we were going to lose money during winter months and make it up during summer months from permit sales. So you can imagine if we experience significant permit sale losses, then our model just doesn't work. And in the end, 12 campsites are just not financially feasible for operations of the park. What we'd like to see, we'd like to see the town of Edson provide a one-time grant to the club for lost revenues in 2023. We hope that the town rebuilds 2 outhouses in Ridgeview, bigger and better, with running water. We hope the town rebuilds the firewood shed and replaces the wood splitter. And then as an ongoing solution, we have 2 solutions, and there's many solutions that we can think of, but these are just 2 to ponder. Either the town increases funding for operations of the park with only 12 campsites, or the town supplies 4 sets of porta potties for the 2024 season, so that we can continue operating Ridgeview, those 28 sites, I think, and reopen that campground immediately. Just an update of what we're doing this spring. We're working with the Edson Junior Forest Wardens to plant conifers. As you know, deciduous trees will grow back very quickly after a fire, but sometimes it takes a little help to get the conifers to come back. And so we're going to be planting conifers along the road to prevent visual break from the road into the campground. And maybe if we have time and seedlings, we'll plant some more conifers between the campsites as a visual break. The Rotary Club would like to thank very much the Alberta Wildfire and all the teams involved from Alberta, BC, Australia, United States, South Africa, as well as the town of Edson for their trail cleanup and reclamation. Thank you very much. I have distributed some financial information. It is confidential, so I'm hoping you don't blurt out numbers, but if you do, it's not the end of the world. We are a contractor and we had to bid on this project, so distributing that information would make it harder for us to bid in the future. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Sorensen, for your presentation this evening and all your work and your club's work out at Wilmore Park. We do appreciate it. Obviously, a very challenging year last year for everyone. Council will open the floor to questions, comments, or concerns. Go ahead, Councillor Taylor.
Yeah, through the mayor to Mr. Sorensen, thank you so much for your presentation and coming forward with this information. Full disclosure, my wife is a longtime Rotarian, and I've voluntold to be at many events throughout the community, and you guys do great work in the community. And I know, obviously, devastating to lose the what you did there. So there was also, from what I understand, you were contracted to run the campground. You had a sub person who was then managing the grounds like day to day. How did that person manage when the park was closed? Were there any costs, like major costs incurred in terms of that person? What did you have to do there?
Yeah, thank you for the question, Councillor Taylor. So yeah, we do have a contract. We do have a worker working in the park on a day-to-day basis. Yeah, so they're there all year round. During the evacuations, they had to leave, and they had expenses like everyone here. When you had to leave town, you had hotels and food and everything that you had to worry about. But during closures, like when the park was closed, but people are still allowed in town, they were in the campground cleaning and just helping out with safety of the park. Yeah.
All right, thank you for that. Council, any further questions, comments? Councillor Chachka.
Thanks, through the chair to Mr. Sorensen. Thanks for your presentation and all the work that the Rotary has done out at Wilmore Park to help maintain its gem factor in our community. My question is regarding the items that were lost in the fire. I know a few community groups, it sounds like, have had some items in there. So were they, did you guys have any insurance for them? Or were they just things that were difficult to insure based on what they were?
Thank you for the question, Councillor Chashka. Yeah, we do have insurance on our brand new quad or ATV, but we also had an older ATV and, like I said, some other smaller tools and stuff that we just can't insure. The insurance on an old ATV the premiums are almost the same as the value of the ATV, so there's no point in having insurance on it. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Council, any further questions, comments, or concerns? Councillor Pisichny.
Yeah, through the air to Mr. Sorensen. Just a weird question. So on the what we'd like to see, because you have an or in there. So is that the first four items or the bottom? Like I'm trying to decipher that. So you require 1, 2, and 3, and then 4 is either or is it like 1, 2, and 3, and 4 is 1, and then the bottom one is 1? Just need some clarification on that.
Thank you, Councillor Pisichny. Yeah, it's 1, 2, 3, and then either or of the 4.
All right, thank you. Any other further questions, comments, or concerns? Councillor Chachka.
Through the chair to Mr. Sorensen, just further to Councillor Pisichny's question on the what you would like to see. Number 1, town provided one-time grant to the club for lost revenues. Is there a specific amount or just what has been determined as being lost?
Thank you for your question, Councillor. So the number is open for debate, but if the grant was $10,000, it would mean that a nonprofit organization had provided services to the town of Edson for 2 years and then broke even. If the grant was $23,000, it would mean that the club was made whole and that the club was ready to work together with the town moving forward and to help build the park back to the state that it was in before.
Thank you. Any further questions? Just a question to Mr. Sorensen. So on your options here, you state town supplies 4 sets of porta potties for the 2024 season so we can open Ridgeview campsites. Do you think there would be demand for those campsites considering the state and all the trees that are lost? Obviously, anybody that stayed at Wilmore, one of the great things about staying in the overflow was the privacy, and you really were in nature when you were staying at those campsites. But do you think there would be enough demand to operate it this season?
Thank you, Mayor, for the question. We believe there is. I mean, we don't know until we actually run it for a season. Other campgrounds in Jasper are wide open fields right now, and they're fully booked. So obviously, it would be better to have trees and privacy. But the main draw for the park is the trails and the bike park, and those are still great assets, and people will still come for them. So we're confident that if we had the overflow or Ridgeview area open, it would still sell significant permits.
All right, thank you. Councillor Chachka?
Through the mayor to Mr. Sorensen, just one more question. Since it's you've been trying to come to council for a little while and it just hasn't worked out, and with the summer season approaching, when are you looking for a response on the asks that you've provided?
Thank you, Councillor, for the question. We normally open reservations online on April 1st. So it'd be nice if we could, but if in our first year, we couldn't open until we actually had the contract with the town. So that year we didn't open registrations till the middle of May. So the sooner the better, but we're willing to work with whatever is needed.
All right, council, any other questions, comments? Oh, go ahead, Councillor Pasichny.
Yeah, through the chair to Mr. Sorensen. The two outhouses, bigger and better with running water, are those for, where would those go? And I guess if we were to build two outhouses, why would we need a set of porta potties? So maybe clarify, are they different locations or what was the plan there?
So my understanding is that thank you, Councillor, for the question. My understanding is that the foundations are still intact for the two older porta potties, the concrete foundations. So it makes sense just to put them back on there for cost savings. We wouldn't need porta potties if you built immediately, but we don't expect you to build immediately. So the idea is to have porta potties up until the date that the outhouses are constructed. Yeah, I don't think we need two equally large outhouses. So before we had one larger one and one smaller one, that makes total sense again in the future.
Go ahead, Councillor Pasichny.
And maybe further to the outhouse question, that I know the town has enough projects of their own. Is there, with a not-for-profit, and you guys have resources, is there a possibility if we're to support even the rebuilding of the houses, if the Rotary Club could spearhead it and arrange it and figure out a dollar amount and take care of it? Because quite often not-for-profits can build considerably cheaper than the town of Edson can.
Thank you for the question. We did offer that to one of your previous managers to run the capital project and then just either run it as a project leader or just entirely run it and then invoice it back to the town. Either one would be acceptable to us. We have someone in the park every day that can act as a project leader. He's an electrician. He's worked extensively in oil and gas. He would be a great project leader. Yeah, we are more than willing to look into that opportunity.
All right, thank you. Councillor Taylor.
Through the mayor, this question probably more for administration. Any of the losses that were incurred out there, or even if we had to do some sort of a grant or anything like that, would this at all be covered within the the provincial disaster recovery program, or a portion of it, or anything like that? Even though I know we contracted Rotary to do it, but again, they were contracted by us.
All right, who would like to take that, Mr. Wagstaff or Mr. Hanlon? Go ahead, Mr. Hanlon.
Sir, thank you. Through to Councillor Taylor, to all of council. We are in discussions with our DRP advisor on this, and it has, I guess there's a two-part answer. One would be it's the terms and conditions of the lease at which we hold and the improvements there. And I'm actually looking, I'm not sure, Tanya, did we hear back from them yet? No. So there is a possibility that the DRP will cover the rebuilding, but we're still waiting for a response from them.
All right, thank you. Council, any further questions for Mr. Sorensen? All right, well, thank you very much for your presentation, Mr. Sorensen. As you are aware, we will not be making a decision tonight, but we will get back to you as quickly as possible, understanding that the camping season is quickly approaching, and look forward to continuing to work with Rotary. Thank you very much. Thank you. All right, reports from staff. Oh, by the way, you can stay for the entire meeting, or if you would like to leave, we certainly understand as well. Executive office, nothing. Infrastructure and planning. Can I get Mr. Ryan O'Sullivan up here? He'll be presenting. He's the Transportation and Parks Manager about amendments to waste bylaw number 2217.
Good evening. I'll be presenting on Waste Bylaw 2217. So there's a few. What's going on here?
Just click on the screen once.
There we go. Okay, so it's additional waste container requests, suspension of waste account requests, fees, and the next steps for the bylaw. So we've come in a few options for the additional waste container. Leave the bylaw as is, which means eligible premises may be issued additional waste containers based on discretion of CAO. That's the way the bylaw reads now. Option 2, allow additional waste and organic waste containers on any eligible premises at the same rate as defined in the fees rates and charges bylaws affected at the time of the request. So if fees go up, it'd be at that new rate. It's now it'd be at the original rate. Allow one additional waste and organic waste container on an eligible premises at new premium rate to be incorporated into the fees and rates charges bylaw. And then the fourth option, we only permit additional waste containers on the premises where landowners have proof of an approved development permit for additional dwellings or suite on the resident premises. So if someone's got a basement suite or type of thing. This is the request for account suspension. So if someone decides to leave snowbirds type of thing, we do want to consider adding provisions into the bylaw that would allow for landowners to suspend the waste collection and associated fees for it. So option 1 would be no suspension of the fees. Option 2, fee suspension up to a maximum of 6 months. And option 3, fee suspension equal to the time requested by the landowner. And here's the waste collection fee options. So we'd be only charge an additional base rate when additional waste containers are issued at the eligible premises. Charge both an additional base rate at the recycle base rate and each eligible premises each additional waste containers. And option 3 fee would be add new fees, additional waste containers greater than the base rate, so adding a new cost to it. Any questions?
All right, thank you, Mr. O'Sullivan, for the presentation. Council, do you have any questions or comments? Go ahead, Councillor Chachka.
Through the chair to Mr. Sullivan, thanks for bringing this forward and for your presentation. First, just kind of starting from the beginning, I guess, with the waste collection option 1, 2, 3, 4. So right now, if someone adds on a secondary suite, they are only allowed one waste bin for that property. Okay. If we are able to add another one, does it have to follow, so if one house adds on another one, does it have to follow either at the same rate as we currently are charging, or if we choose to do at a premium rate, that it will work that way if they are two separate homes, I guess, or housing units?
Yeah, through the chair to Councillor Chechka. So it all depends on which rate and fee direction we want to go. So if we say Option 3, we're allowing an additional waste container, but at a premium rate. That means the rate will be increased, but they're allowed 2. If we go, option 4 is if it's based on they have a development permit and they have a basement suite, they would get it at the additional suite, at the additional rate.
Go ahead, Mr. Kitlitz.
Mr. Chair, if I could also just add, I think what we're asking council to give us some weigh in on is these are the questions we get, and it's really a challenge. Basically, when we get the question for an extra bin, because there's no direction of the bylaw, it's sort of at the discretion of the CAO the way the bylaw reads. But typically, there's risk for it being handled inconsistently, right? So there's no direction to say, do we charge an extra base rate? It doesn't even. There's no clarity on that. So we have no real direction on how to deal with this. So that's why we're coming with some options on how to deal with it. And we're looking for council to weigh in on that, and then we'll bring back a bylaw that's crafted accordingly.
Thank you, Councillor Pisichny.
Yeah, through the mayor to administration, you kind of dived in on my question, because my question was going to be, why are we looking at this and what is broken and why do we need to fix it? So I guess maybe I'll go further to that. We have right now, they don't get charged if they get an extra bin. Is that correct?
Well, they don't get an extra
They-
There we go. Right now, we don't allow an extra bin unless it's approved through the CAO.
Okay. I guess my question is in some places you need an extra bin, and I can give some examples. The schools, I don't know how many organic bins they have outside the school. At the lodge, we have 3 or 4 extra bins because we have that much organic. My understanding is the contractor charges us an annual fee based on households, not off of bins. I guess maybe what is our best solution? I don't want to make this cumbersome where all of a sudden our billing department is going gangbusters trying to figure out who has 2 bins and who has 1 bin and who doesn't have a bin. And it becomes a bit of a nightmare. Next thing you know, well, we got to hire another admin staff because we have so many damn extra garbage bins. So I don't want to end down that path where we're creating, bylaws for the sake of creating bylaws. So I like the term KISS, which is keep it simple. I left out the last word, but to me, it should be something simple and it should be very basic, and to a point where it doesn't get abused. So I don't think we should be going down this like a pile of fees and rates and charges, and we're nickel and diamond our ratepayers to death. I know sometimes people need an extra bin. So I just don't want to create a bylaw for the sake of creating a bylaw.
All right, thank you, Councillor Chachka.
Thanks. Through the chair to council and administration. Similar to Councillor Pisichny, I would want to keep it simple. I think the premium rate, sounds great in theory that we're trying to reduce garbage waste to the landfill. And I can see the desire to go that way. But I think just having a consistent rate is better. At the same point, though, I'm not sure if I align with Councillor Pisichny. I think if we want an extra bin, then we need to charge for that. And I do have a question on how long. So if someone wants an extra bin, say only for the summer, are they allowed to get a bin only for the summer, or does that bin stay with them to the length of their property, that they are owning that property? Same thing with the secondary suite, because I don't want it to become administratively cumbersome to have people saying, oh, I'm on holidays in July, so I don't, need my bin that month, anyways, I'm just wondering what your thoughts are with the length of time that they're getting an additional bin.
Through the chair to Councillor Cheshka, I think that would go to getting it too far into the weeds and charging 1 month 1 bin, not charging another month another bin, having people bring bins back and I think we'd lose track very quickly.
Thank you, Councillor Taylor.
Through the mayor to administration. Well, first things first, in terms of like, if someone has a secondary suite, essentially that is a separate family unit completely. They should have their own bins. That I think, because there's a separation of garbage. There's could be privacy concerns and all those types of things. If you have a secondary suite, having a separate bin is fine. I think if you build the same rate, it is, I mean, again, it would be up to the landowner to make this decision, but it would be my assumption the landowner would pass that fee on to their renter. That's would be my assumption. It'd be just, but that would be up to them. The second thing, we're kind of talking about two different things. We're talking about a waste bin, we're talking about a compost bin, right? Is the cost together, I guess? So I thought there was a cost for one and a cost for the other.
Yeah, through the chair to Councillor Taylor. Yes, so there is a recycle bin and there is an organics bin and there is a waste bin. It would be whichever one they require.
Right, okay. So if you needed an extra compost bin, this is where I side with Councillor Persisny, we're encouraging compost. That's what we want to do. That's all part of our council strategic plan. We want people to do that. If you want another waste bin, I'll be honest, like Councillor Persisny, you mentioned the schools and how many compost bins we have. We have those compost bins because we don't really have much garbage. Really, if you're recycling and you're composting, you will produce very little garbage. Like, I have a garbage can in my classroom, it is this big, and nothing goes in there. The only thing that goes in there are dirty diapers, which aren't in my classroom, and styrofoam. That's it. Everything else can either go in one of the plethora of bins that we have in our hallway, from soft plastics to hard plastics to paper and of course compost. So with that, you know, to say to anybody, to say, great, I can get another bin and that way I don't have to take any of my stuff to the recycle depot. I don't have to worry about compost anymore. I can just go straight into the garbage bin. That defeats the purpose of kind of what we're trying to do here. If you want another compost bin, fine, okay. There can be worked out in terms of a fee. Probably the same fee is fine. But if you want another garbage bin, there may have to be another cost associated with that, because or something, because again, you shouldn't be producing, if you are recycling and you're composting, you shouldn't be producing that much garbage. So adding an extra fee to that, I know that, again, to Councillor Persisny's point, could get complicated in the building department, but it does align with our strategic plan of what we're trying to do to be good stewards to the environment. So those are my comments there.
Thank you. Councillor Persisny?
Yeah, through the mayor to administration, I do know that we pay tonnage on top of our fees. Is that correct? So adding waste bins does add to our costs, and I don't think I'm opposed to the idea of an additional fee. My fear is people wanting to turn it on and turn it off. Right? I'm taking off for the winter. Oh, we're going to be gone to the lake for 2 months, so I would like to turn my garbage off to save $20. Because there's people that will do that, and those people generally have money because they're smart that way. But at the end of the day, it has to be something simple and it can't be too complex. And turning your garbage bins on and off, we pay a contract fee, and sometimes they don't pick up all the bins in town. I mean, I talked to Councillor Chenard, who's been in the waste business for a long time. A lot of people forget to put their bin out. And then a lot of, so it's not that we don't have the capacity. It's not going to really affect our fee, our costs a lot. But I just don't want to have this a logistical nightmare where you are have a pile of stuff going on in the town, people trying to figure out whose bin's out, whose bin's not in. The contractor's not counting how many bins are out there. They see a bin, they tip it. I mean, who in the room in town here who hasn't forgot their garbage and pushed their bin on the other side of the street so it gets picked up? Because I've done that. Yeah, because I forgot and the truck already went by, but he hadn't done the other side yet. So I just push across the street and it gets picked. So let's be honest, it's going to get picked up. But I just don't want this a big convoluted mess of a bylaw that says this, and then people are nickel and diming it and creating a pile of nightmares. And who's going to go out and check to see if they have the bin there? I don't know. It's just, to me, it seems like a lot. But I'm not against, like, so you have a secondary suite, and you need a secondary bin, and you're going to turn it on for a year or forever or whatever the case, then we'll charge you an extra $9 or $10 or whatever the fee amount is for that extra bin. I'm okay with that because technically that's like an extra person on the runs. But I just that there has to be some kind of timelines in this so that we're not turning it off for a month, because I'm going to be gone for 4 weeks. So I'll shut it off for a month and save myself $20. Like, I just don't want to get down that path.
Thank you. I hope nobody starts a black market bin business in town. Councillor Moore.
Through the mayor to Mr. O'Sullivan, how many people right now are requesting more bins?
through the chair to Mr. Orr. We get about 2 to 3 a month.
Okay.
So it's not too many, but it's enough for people to start,
Thank you.
Councillor Taylor.
Yeah, through the mayor to council administration, and I know, I guess we have a few things to discuss, but I guess maybe going to the third one, Councillor Patricia brought up about the suspension of these things. I would be more inclined to go with option one, because again, you get some snowbirds saying, I'm going away for 6 months, I'd like to turn it off and turn it back on again. You're right to, again, to Councillor Patricia's point, to save $20 or whatever, it's like, well, now we're getting into a bit more of an administrative nightmare to figure this out. Like, so I think the suspension of it, unless, I can't even say unless, I just think that we start to handcuff ourselves. We start to say for 6 months or for a week. You get people going on holidays for 2 weeks saying, oh, I don't want my bin picked up to save $4. I don't think we need that. I think just the option one, that no suspension of the fees, is probably, to use the KISS example, it does keep it relatively simple, right? And that's generally been the case thus far. And I haven't heard any concerns with that from any of the individuals that have their winters elsewhere. So,
Thank you. Councillor Chachka.
Thanks. So through the chair to council and administration. So just to, I guess, provide more clarity, because there's a pile of different things that we're diving into here. I am in favor of allowing those that have an additional development permit or dwelling or suite registered through the town to allow them to have an additional garbage or waste container at the regular rate. And I would rather not see crows picking out garbage along the streets. And if someone wants an additional waste bin at the same rate, then I think it's worth allowing them. I don't know if it's worth fighting over that. I personally would prefer people to recycle, and I know what Councillor Taylor mentioned. I believe what he's saying is true, but I think there are some circumstances where recycling is also a challenge for some people in our community. So I think having that is okay. And we've kind of dabbled into the organics, additional organics. So are you looking for information also on the organics, or does the waste bin and the organics bin go hand in hand? I'm not quite sure what you're asking of that. I also think if people want another organics bin, lots of people have big yards, and especially they need that during the summertime, and that's helpful for them. So I think that I think it's reasonable to provide that service should they ask for it. I'm just not sure if you're wanting to have a fee to that, or where you want that discussion to go.
Well, I think Councillor Chachka, if I may step in just for a second here, I think that's up to council to decide what we want. If we want to charge or we don't believe it's what is council's philosophy around this. So I think that's what administration's looking for here tonight.
Oh, okay, thank you. And I'm just looking for what they're asking of us, because there's just quite a few things on here. And in addition to what Councillor Taylor said, I'm not in favor of suspending fees on people that are going to be away for a short period of time. So I don't know where council feels on the, I know we've kind of went back and forth all around the table on this, with the organics bins. I don't know where other council members are feeling on that. I also want to keep it simple, so I don't want to say if you want an organics bin, it's X dollars a month and this and that. Like, I don't know how to make it simple. And I guess that's where I'm asking for admin for some clarity on what makes it simple in order to allow those residents that would like an additional bin to be able to get that at something that is easy to implement.
Thank you, Councillor Chachka. So I think there's a lot of good discussion here, but I think this is exactly how administration needs to hear the feedback so they could come back with something. So I think what we've heard here tonight, instead of going around in circles, is we need to bring something that is easy to administer, that is not cumbersome for administration, And that, I think what we do need to clarify for administration here tonight is whether or not we want to allow those additional bins for people in our community. I haven't had the chance to step in here, so you're gonna have to wait for a second there, Councillor Taylor. I think the philosophy of charging more to push people to recycle, I think there's a good philosophy there, but I don't think in reality that's actually accomplishing what we wanted to accomplish, because we have a lot of folks in this community that are going to generate garbage no matter what the fee is, and then it gets illegally dumped, it gets thrown into dumpsters downtown. Tons of people downtown with dumpsters, business owners have been dealing with people dumping their trash, and now these businesses are paying for other people's garbage. So even though our intentions may be great, the reality is I don't think we're accomplishing what we want to by increasing fees or adding additional costs because we're trying to push people into recycling. You're either going to do it or you're not going to do it at this point. Some people may not have the capability. We also have folks in this community that have a lot of family members living with them because that's the only way they can afford to live. So they are going to generate more garbage. We have... Not every property is the same. And as you mentioned, for organics, in the summertime, I have a very large property where I need 2 organics bins, but at this point, I can't get them. So luckily, I have the ability to haul my yard waste, but there's other people in our community that don't. I remember when this discussion about this program first started, there were a lot of people that were against the compost program. We took a lot of heat for it. And then when people actually learned what it was, they really have come to appreciate what it is providing for the community. So from my point of view, just to wrap up here, I think that we should be allowing people to have additional containers if they want to pay for that additional container, particularly on the garbage side. I don't think we need to charge them a premium rate. We do want to divert organics material from our landfill, which is a way higher cost for us. So if people want additional organic bins, I don't think we should be charging additional funds for organic bins because we are trying to divert that waste. And that's a value-added service for our community. We already pay we pay our utility rates at a rate, and I think that there should be some value add there for people who are trying to do the right thing upon the environment. As for the suspension of fees, I agree with a lot of what I've heard here. I think it becomes very cumbersome really quick. Somebody calls, says, I want a suspension for 4 months. Somebody forgets to do it, and then all of a sudden their garbage doesn't get picked up, and now they're calling the town upset, and then it just becomes an administrative nightmare. So I'm really challenged with the suspension of fees, because I do believe it becomes just an administrative burden and then a whole additional cost upon taxpayers and utility payers. So that's, you have something on that?
On that, yeah.
Yeah, okay, go ahead, Councillor Pisichny.
Just the suspension of fees is then how does the operator know that you're not paying your garbage fees? You just roll your bin out there for the 4 months. Like that, there's a real challenge there, right? So if you suspend it for 6 months, you come back 2 months early and you're like, just put it out there. The truck's going to pick it. They're not going to know that, oh, that's address so-and-so. There's a huge challenge with that.
That's, those are my comments. Councillor Taylor.
Yeah, through the mayor to council administration, I agree. I think the additional compost bin is necessary. I'm glad you brought up the landfill comment because, we are trying to elongate the life of our landfill by diverting things away from it. And again, we're trying to encourage that zero waste philosophy if we can, that much as the same resides in many of the schools, as I mentioned. Maybe this is maybe a nitpicky thing. Are there any areas in town that would create it would be suddenly more cumbersome to have lots of bins on the curb? Obviously, we're dealing with only 2 to 3 people a month. If we allow, say, more bins, and anyway, whether it's waste or compost, are there some areas, they get some smaller houses that are closer together, all of a sudden we're pulling out 2 bins each, and you're supposed to be X amount of feet away from other bins and vehicles and snowbanks and whatever? Does that create issues for the contractor or anything like that? Or are there any areas in town that would be super problematic?
Go ahead, Mr. O'Sullivan.
Through the chair to Councillor Taylor. Yes, there is a couple towns, a couple streets like West Haven that would be very tight and small. Houses are close together, lots of cars on the streets. So it could create some issues for the contractor, but I'm sure they'll have to figure it out. Yeah.
Just a further question related to the contract, because ultimately it's the contractor that's going to have to deal with this. Is the contractor open to additional bins? Is this something that would normally be in a contract with the municipality? Obviously, they're contracting with most of Alberta, I understand it. So, has there any discussions with our contractor on that at all?
No, there hasn't been any discussions quite yet. We were wondering what we were going with this first before we brought it up with our contractor.
Okay, thank you. So we've knocked this garbage can around a lot. Yes, I know. I'm trying to be witty. I'm not that funny mayor jokes. So maybe we'll go around the table just to clarify, or does administration have what they need? Go ahead, Mr. Kitlitz.
Mr. Chair, I guess if I could just summarize, I think what we're hearing is that simple. For one, we're pretty clear, I think, that we want to bring back a bylaw that doesn't allow for a waiver of any kind of the fee or suspension of the fees. So that's clear, and I think that'd be good to have those be explicit in the bylaw. It sounds like there's appetite for sure extra bins when you come with an approved development permit for extra dwelling. Makes total sense. But also council amenable to opening up requests for secondary waste bins for the same rate that's defined in the fees and charges bylaw now. With respect to the organics, the challenge is right now the fees are just one rate. It's $18.61. So we'll have to go back to the contract. We could probably spit that out, but we'd have to update the fees bylaw to put a rate in for just the waste bin, which is fine. That's doable. Just a comment on the idea of if I want an additional organics bin, there's no charge. I guess the question might come to, right, well, why do I pay for my first one then? If it's such a good idea to provide organics, why am I paying for the first bin? So that's just something that came to my mind, because that's a question I think someone would ask us. So I'm just trying to think of how to handle that one, right? So that may be a bit challenging. So, but I think we got enough to bring back a draft bylaw for council to take a look at. I think I'm comfortable. Are you okay? Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Okay, so I think you got enough at this point in time. I think to your comment about the organics question there, I think that's a legitimate question. My response to that is you're paying because we're providing a service. So everybody's paying that base rate. Now you're doing something that is diverting stuff from the landfill even at above a rate that we would expect for a residential property. Here's your value added bin to allow you to do that. Or maybe it's a reduced rate, I don't know. Or maybe it's the same rate. I don't, if that's the desire of council, but I think there is a huge, and this is the discussion that we often have around this table when it comes to waste management. People don't understand the cost of running a landfill, and once that space is gone, it's gone. And when we have to go rebuild a landfill, we are going to have major costs. We're spending over $2 million to build a cell in Hinton right now, which that's a lot of money. And that landfill life isn't going to be there for eternity. So something that we always have to consider. Council, do you have any further comments that you'd like to make? If not, thank you very much for your presentation, and we look forward to having further discussions on this. We have no corporate services items tonight. We are moving to Community and Protective Services Draft Special Events Policy CS9, presented by Tanya Byers, Manager of Community Services. Come on up, Ms. Byers.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. It's my pleasure to bring this back to you. It's been a while. It did come last spring, but then a few things kind of happened along the way, and here we are just bringing back some of the things that you had asked us to look at again before finalizing the draft. So I'm just going to go through it really quick slideshow here. Please stop me and ask questions whenever you feel you need to. So the special events policy, just kind of bringing you back to the original reason that we created it, we really wanted to better support our local groups to safely organize events for the community and make the process more efficient and more effective. I mean, we did have a process in place, but it was somewhat ad hoc, and we wanted to really just bring it into a nice structure that people understood a little easier. And so you'll see in some of the more recent updates in the draft that you have, it's really been incorporated into the new updated policy template. And so it includes some of the definitions that the last one didn't have, and they can be found on page 1 of the policy. And then, some of the additional purposes of the policy were just like establishing council's role, establishing criteria around when a special event permit is required, and also taking into account, like establishing the applicant's compliance requirements and responsibilities, and which we did in section 5 of the policy now. And also insurance was a big piece of this, ensuring that, everybody was covered liability-wise, the town and also the individuals that are putting on the events. And so criteria are now located in section 7 of the policy. And like I said, there were just a few sticking points, I guess, that you had asked administration to go back and take a closer look at. And, bylaw 2025 is one area, I guess, that does allow enforceability. You had that question and we weren't exactly sure, which bylaw it pertained to. So we have found that information. And also the parameters around notifying the public. We've added section 4.7, and the communication has been added. Our communications department was added to the process just to make sure that they were in the loop, and then they would notify the public when a special event was going to take place. And another request was that, there were certain events or I guess certain flavors of events that council didn't want permitted on town land. This was a little bit tricky, of course, to decipher, and, I'm certainly open to discussion around it. So events that promote discrimination based on race, national or ethnic origin, color, religion, age, or sexual orientation and gender. Events that incite hatred or harm against identifiable groups or individuals, events that display pornographic or sexually explicit material of any kind, or events that knowingly promote illegal, false, or misleading information. And then the approval timelines and permitting were also something you wanted us to take a look at. And so of events that are 1 to 3 days in length, Community and Protective Services would have that approval authority. And if they're 4 to 5 days, then our CAO Beverage would be approving those. And anything beyond a 5-day event would be for council approval. And so I've already kind of mentioned the enforceability piece of it. Bylaw 2025, it was called the Park Land Bylaw, Regulation of Conduct and Activities of People in Parks. This was developed in 2006, so notably there's some changes, some updates that need to be made to that. And so, that is, I guess, the next step of the process as well. And one other comment that was made was, do we really have to make our community partner or the community groups such as like the library or the museum, do they need to get permits? And administration really feels that it is best practice that anybody that is hosting an event that meets these criteria or one of their criteria, that it goes through the same process, because a big part of it is the accountability piece, the safety, knowing that you've dotted all the I's, crossed the T's, and that enforcement and RCMP and everybody's actually aware of it. And the town, like if we're shutting down a street, pretty important that everybody know about that. So, even it's, even though town events, we don't have to follow this process, we do expect that we will anyways, because it is something that we do. We do dot those i's and cross those t's. And we also let all the other departments know when we are having a large special event. So I guess it's, administration just recommends that anyone doing these events would go through the same process. And with that, is there any questions?
All right, thank you, Ms. Byers, for your presentation. Go ahead, Councillor Posichny.
Yeah, through the chair to Ms. Byers. I have two questions, and there's two parts of my questions. So, the policy is quite descriptive in it. I guess one question I have, first question is on the appeal process. In the event of a denial, it goes to the general manager and to the chief administrative officer. Was there any thought that one could appeal to council as we represent the people in the community? Because here it's like the iron hand comes down and then that's it, it's done. Then people have to go the back way to come to council. And my second part of my question is under insurance requirements. I struggle with the listing the town of Edson as an additional insured. And the reason I say that is having insurance, I agree with 110%. But having people added to your insurance policies isn't that easy. So, for example, West Coast Communities comes here with 100 rides. They're not adding the town of Edson to their insurance policy. They're going to have their own insurance policy. There's a lot of cases where companies think they need to be added to the insurance policy. If you're going to have an event, you should have an event insurance, which is essentially ensuring that you are insured, because if somebody sues, if they don't sue the person, they're going to sue the community. We have our own insurance for those reasons, but having the town added to a policy is a bit struggling for me. So maybe you can speak to that, because if we go back in history in this community, we had one time had Glenwood Hall and we couldn't rent it out because the town of Edson put an insurance requirement on it. We had this hall sitting, we eventually turned it into a church and traded it for some land, which is the best deal we ever made. But hence we have Canadian Tire, the taxpayer. So, but at the end of the day, it never got rented out because they had to put insurance on it and name the town, and name this person, name that, and nobody could get insurance. And when they wanted to have an event, it was going to cost $2,000, and people said, well, we can't rent that hall. So I just don't want us to say, the Rotary Club, for example, wants to have an event and they have to go get and they have their own insurance for their events that they have all the time. And now they got to add the town of Edson, and now you got to get all the insurance companies. So to me, it's a bit cumbersome on there. So maybe you can speak to that and to the appeal process as well, please.
Go ahead, Mr. Wagstaff.
Did I do that correct? Yes, okay. Through the mayor to Councillor Posichny and council, with regards to your first question about the appeal process, right now, the way it is set is that an appeal would go through to the general manager. If that was still to be appealed, it would go to the chief administrative officer. That's set that way so that we're held to account administratively. If the appeal process included a process that said appeal to council in the appealing process, it would negate having those first two steps, because an appeal would automatically, if it's by policy, go right to council, because it says right there, go to council for the appeal. That's a political process that would align with once any administrative decision is made, public or members of the public may, if they wish and desire, still to have their attempt to come before council. So in a policy perspective, we're recommending that it stick with an administrative end and not a political end. Those pieces will end up being political if someone wishes to go that route. And on the second question with regards to insurance, I'm going to defer to my colleague, General Manager of Corporate Services.
Go ahead, Mr. Hanlon.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Mr. Wagstaff. Sir, through you to Councillor Posichny, to all of council. Yes, naming the municipality as an insured party is something that I would seek to clarify, that corporate services would clarify when we bring this back. And the reason I'm suggesting this is it's either best practice or recommendation, or it's a requirement. And my preference would be to confirm that and communicate that to community and protective services when this comes back. And we will do that.
All right, thank you. Ms. Byers, do you have anything you want to add? No, okay. Council, any further questions, comments, concerns? Councillor Taylor?
Yeah, through the mayor to Ms. Byers, thank you for bringing this forward. I know, yes, it was quite a while ago we chatted about this. You had asked the question about having like all groups ensure they go through that process. I agree with that. I think, you know, it keeps it a level playing field, whether it is the museum or the chamber, who host many events throughout our community all the time, so long as the process is simple. And I think that was something we had talked about, what are we, almost a year ago, that, you know, be a simple thing to fill out online, even, and we had spoken about even having a link to that insurance policy within that online submission, right? That you can just go here and just get your quick insurance that you need, right? And people say, yeah, I got that, right? And that was something we had spoken, I think we'd spoken about a year ago, and I think that we should keep with that, right? On to do with insurance, and maybe this was kind of spoken about, and I'm not quite following it. Maybe we talk about the sidewalk jamboree or the what's it called, like Summerfest Summer Festival. The chamber essentially books and closes off the road for a special event. It is their event, right? And then they bring in a huge third party, right? So is the chamber then, and sorry if this was already answered, I just maybe didn't understand it, is the chamber then supplying just their insurance, or do they have to supply the other major third party that's involved? And the reason why I bring that up is because of, well, the incident that happened in Spruce Grove. Stony Plain, sorry. With amusement parks. And then suddenly you get into whose insurance was it? Like, well, yeah, such and such group had insurance, but we weren't covering the accident of this major group that we brought into town. And, you know, not saying we're not trusting carnies here, but something, you know, that organization, that business in Stony Plain had some questionable practices, right? So providing that is important, especially if they're providing equipment that, you know, is being put up in the middle of the night and is ready for 9 a.m. the next morning, and, you know, like, and our kids are on it. You know, we want to ensure it's safe, and if something happens, God forbid, the right people are held to account, right? So I guess just needed some clarification. Again, I'm not sure if that was what we were talking about there. We're just adding some discussion. Looks like CO Beveridge has something to say. So,
go ahead, CO Beveridge.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Taylor and to Councillor Positioning. So with regards to those events, the town we always require to be named as additional insured. That's on all of our contracts, and also with these events, especially high risk events like that. And I can't speak to, of course, with how the arrangement with the chamber and the West Coast Amusements or whatever, but I can speak to what was required for the chamber. They were absolutely required.
All right, thank you, Council. Any further questions, comments? Councillor Chachka.
Thanks. So through the chair to administration, just in further support of what Councillor Positioning mentioned regarding insurance groups maybe already having insurance. I know my time with the Cadets, they're a national organization, and through that body, they do have insurance provided as long as they register the event with the national body of the organization, and then they get a certificate of insurance under that heading. So as Councillor Positioning mentioned, if there's additional requirements on top of that, it can get a little bit tricky, I think, and I'm not sure if other clubs in the community also have that same type of national status with insurance, but I can see how that could be challenging to ensure that it's also met. Just a question on where am I at here? The events that you will not authorize a special event for. So when a group comes to say, hey, I want to do a thing, you know, at Centennial or any park in the community, you know, maybe they're not going to say that they're promoting discrimination based on race or something, right? How do you deal with that? Either at the time, are we assuming that they're going to be forthcoming, that they're going to be discriminating based on race? I'm just picking this as an example. Or is that something that's just dealt with if it happens afterwards, that it's dealt with through enforcement services?
Mr. Wagstaff.
Through the mayor to Councillor Kachka and Council, that's an enforcement issue, and the bylaw does cover that if it's been misrepresented, or if circumstances change, or if one of the conditions of the permit have not been met, the bylaw does refer to withdrawing that permit, and that's how we would enforce that. So yes, we do take that groups, as they provide the information, that they're truthful and honest. If that comes to light differently, then we would address it through withdrawing that permit on an enforcement basis.
Thank you. Council, any further questions? Councillor Taylor.
Yeah, through the mayor to administration. 5.2 under applicant responsibilities. Based on the assessment of the town's sole determination of the risks associated with the event and the value of town property involved, the town may require a damage deposit from the event applicant to ensure compliance with the conditions. What amounts are we looking at? There's nothing. The way I'm reading it, there's nothing in here that says who sets that amount, unless I'm missing something. And then how do you come up with that on it? Is it a case by case basis? Like one organization says I had to put a $1,000 deposit on, the other says, well, I had to put a $100 deposit on. Well, how do we determine that amount?
The policy didn't get to that level of determination. Now, because there can be such a wide variety, we did have a discussion about whether we would have an amount in here. And given the unknown, as soon as you put an amount in, something will come up that'll be outside of that realm. So we felt that the language of town's sole discretion met a case-by-case basis.
All right, council, any further questions, comments, concerns? So I thank you for all your hard work on this. I really appreciate it. I know the discussion we had was some time ago, so it is a little bit fuzzy. But I do recall during that conversation, I think it was alluded to here earlier, is that at the end of the day, what we're trying to do is ensuring that we have a very less cumbersome process than what we have right now, and trying to make it easier for people to host events in the community. And I believe in, clarify if I'm wrong here, Ms. Byers, when people do apply, we do actually have a portal with the insurance company now for them to get insurance. Is that correct on the website? Or I know we were working on something in regards to that. Ms. Byers?
Mayor, my last recollection of that was that Mr. Lukac was looking into it, and I would have to defer because I don't know where that's at. Sorry.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Hanlon?
Sir, excuse me, sir, thank you, and through you to all of council. Once again, I would suggest corporate services will confirm with our insurance provider. We are set up and have a portal access for our staff, and when this returns to council, we'll confirm the possibility, the availability for special events programmers to access that as well.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead, Councillor Pisichny.
Yeah, through the mayor to corporate services. Does that mean that they would be like getting an amendment or paying for something to be attached to our insurance? Is that what that would be for? Not their own insurance policy from their own insurance company?
No, I think Councillor Pisichny, what we discussed previously is there's insurance available that people, organizations can apply for online, where it's very quick and easy, where they can get for a special event.
So does it show multiples?
I don't know.
The reason I asked that, and if I may further, I just don't want to say, okay, yeah, well, it's XYZ insurance brokerage downtown, and here's their portal. Yeah. And I don't want us to be in a point or where if they can get the insurance at one of our local brokerages, I don't want to be sending them out of town. Yeah. So I want to make sure that I would like to make sure that if it's an amendment through AUMA, where our I think that's who we're insured through still, or RMRC or whoever we're through right now. Yeah. Alberta municipality still. Okay. So if it's through them and we're an amendment and it's tying into ours, that's the best route, then I'm okay with that. I just, if there's event insurance out there, I'd prefer that we give all the options, not one, and I'd prefer those options to be as local as possible.
Yeah, I can't recall. We had the discussion. This was going back a ways away, but obviously we've been busy with other things over the last year. So, Councillor Taylor.
Yeah, through the mayor to administration and council, and I think Ms. Byer sort of alluded that former staff member was sort of maybe looking into that, of how that could be streamlined. And I guess there's many options to link it to your local businesses, and which I'd be supportive of, that you could see, hey, you could have a best rate options or whatever. I stress, though, no matter the process, whether that linked to the insurance, but going back to the overall process of applying for this permit, and going through all the different policies. If your event is a special event, it's temporary load closure, a block party, all the things, it is simplified on that website. Like, no residents shouldn't have to plow through 5 different policies to figure out what's going on. It should be really, does your event require to close the road? Yes, no. What area are you booking? Centennial Park or Kinsman Park or blah? Click, and keep it going down, submit. Something comes back that says we'll review it and get back to you, right? Something as simple as that. That's what residents are looking for. If you're asking them to print something off and like that sort of thing, or read different policies, people don't want to do that. And you're just going to discourage people from getting these permits. That's the whole purpose of what we're trying to do here, hopefully, is simplify the scenario for them, simplify it for our residents, and simplify it for ourselves as well.
Thank you. Any further comments or questions? Just on the appeals process that was brought up earlier, obviously council has a role from a governance standpoint and overall accountability piece. We delegate authority to administration to do the operational pieces of all of our policies. So as long as there's also the ability for that appeal to come to council, if other avenues are exhausted, I'm fine with how this is laid out here. We have lots of policies, and ultimately the CAO is responsible to council, and the staff are responsible to the CAO. So, if there is an event that may be considered not being approved, and there's questions of whether or not it fits within that criteria, then as long as those mechanisms that ultimately that could come to council for an appeal, I'm certainly open to that, because we're the ones that are accountable to the public on that. So, council, any further questions, comments, or concerns? Do you have everything you need, Tanya? Thank you very much, and thank you to the team for your work on this. We have no information items, no sundry items. Questions for media and public regarding items from this council or this committee of the whole meeting? I know it's happened. Where's Councillor Chouinard? Welcome.
Good evening. My name is Christy Williamson, and first of all, I just wanted to let you know that I appreciate the opportunity for this time to ask questions. I emailed council earlier today regarding the events not permitted on town land. Councillor Pasichny kind of touched on this. I find these points are very broad and they're open to interpretation. If a controversial speaker wanted to come to Edson, could they be denied because they have different views or opinions other than that of administration has, or opinions? Could this be considered promoting false or misleading information? So I'm just asking this question to anybody that can answer it.
All right. Thank you for the question, and thanks for your comments that you brought forward. I think you sent the email just prior to the meeting. I think the threshold when we've talked about this policy is pretty high in terms of what we would say would be promoting hate. And I think that definition is probably a little bit more defined. As for false and misleading information, there's false and misleading information, and there's matters of opinion and political view, right? So I think it's really hard to define that until you actually know the exact situation. So I think the comments that we heard here today that obviously, things can be appealed through administration, and then ultimately, if there's still a question, then it can come to council, and council can make that determination. So, I don't know if that answers your question, in terms of, at least there's a process that elected officials ultimately have to make that decision if there is a question, whether or not that is defined. Oh, you turned it off.
Okay, I appreciate that because you are the elected official, so I would think that there's going to be times when that would need to happen. But I think it's a bit of a slippery slope, and it's something I think we need to keep in mind.
Okay. Thank you very much. Any further questions? Go ahead, Mr. Sorensen. Yes, yeah, please do. Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, yeah, just hit the button. Yeah, go ahead.
Thank you. I'd like to make a statement, but I know I'm not supposed to do that, so I'll make a question to administration. Has administration asked the contractor GFL if they're willing to handle delivery, invoicing, suspensions, and final pickup of any extra garbage and compost bins in town? We have, in my opinion, we have a company that's set up to do this already. I don't know why the town of Edson would take on those additional requirements.
I don't think that's probably a question we can answer tonight, but that's something we certainly can take back. All right, thank you. Any other further questions? Anything online, Steve, from the media? All right, we have no closed meeting session. Motion for adjournment. Who's going to do this? This is a tough decision. Councillor Taylor.
Oh, this is so exciting. I so move.
All right, and we will post the question. Please vote now. And that motion is carried unanimously. Thank you, everyone. Have a good night.